Today we're going to be using Michelangelo's famous marble sculpture of David to help us learn how to shade the human head. The advantage of using a marble sculpture is it's devoid of color, so you can concentrate on the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. The first thing you need to do is block in the geometric form so you can draw a contour line drawing of David and get the proportions right. The head is an egg shape. The eyes are in the middle. Draw a curved line across the egg shape to indicate where the eyes go. There's a curved line that shows the skull that goes around the back. And there's also a vertical line showing where the center of the lips and the nose is. It's not in the middle because the face is turned 3/4 of the way. So you draw that curved line from the top of the head down to the chin, and the chin, eyes, and nose all line up centered on that. When you draw the eyes, draw one eye to the left side and the other eye to the right side of that line. Draw the eyes directly on the eye line. The eyes are sort of a football shape. Make sure the points of the football are exactly on the eye line so that it looks like it's curving with the head and it looks like it's in the proper place. When you draw the nose, you add the nose, chin, lips, add them along that vertical curved line. Those guidelines exist for a reason, so follow them. And that way you'll make sure the features of the face all line up. And if you could see where the ear is, the eye line intersects with the ear, and it's drawn just outside the oval for the head. And that's because the face is turned at a 3/4 turn. Now you're going to add hair. The hairline is just above the eyebrows, so it's going to overlap the top of the head. Initially, before you added the hair, he looked sort of like an egghead. When you cover over the top of the head with the hair, you get rid of that egghead problem. The other thing is most beginners tend to pile the hair on top of the head, which looks really strange. You have to cover over the head when you add the hair. The other thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be paying attention to the actual contours of the edge of the face. They're not the same as the egg shape you drew. That egg shape was only as a guide. So if you look next to the eye on the left side, you'll see I curved it in. And when you erase the guidelines, you want to actually have the contours of the face and not this oval shape with eyes, nose, and mouth on it. So now you're going to really have to start looking at the face. Right now I've erased the guidelines, and what you have now is called a contour line drawing. Contour line drawing does not have any highlights, midtones, and shadows. It's simply the lines that define our picture. And now you're going to start thinking about shading. The darkest pencil would be the 6B pencil that we're going to use for the darkest shadows, then the 2B pencil for the midtones, the HB pencil for the lighter shades, and you would also use the HB pencil when you draw. The H pencil is even lighter, so you can get a very subtle color gradient here. You're actually going to follow the three-dimensional forms of the face. In other words, when you put the shading on the cheek, imagine that you're a makeup artist adding blush, and you want to follow the contour of the cheekbone. When you're putting the shading on the side of the nose, imagine, just take your finger and rub the side of your nose and feel what shape it is and make all your lines going in that direction. In this case, I deliberately didn't smear any of my lines because I wanted to show you how I followed the three-dimensional form every place that I shaded. If you take away all the contour lines and you just look at the shading, which is what I did here, you should be able to follow the sculpted three-dimensional form of the head. And that's actually the point here. You're using a sculpture to learn how to shade because shading is a technique that artists use in order to make their art look three-dimensional. And the way that we do that is by using highlights, midtones, and shadows. If you just cover the whole thing gray, you haven't shaded it in. You need to have the darkest darks, the midtones, and the lightest lights. It takes all three of them to create that three-dimensional appearance. Now this picture at this point is still actually not done because you need to take the eraser and put in the highlight. See how much better the picture will look once you erase the cheek, the bridge of the nose, a little bit on the lip, a tiny bit inside the eyes, the outer part of the chin. It just brings it to life. I'm going to zoom in here for a minute so you can see how much better it looks now that the highlights are erased. What I did here was I started with a 6B, then I went to a 2B, then an HB, and then an H. I started in the darkest shadow area, and I shaded out. And what you do is you overlap the values. So you go from dark to light gradually, and when you use the next lightest value, you go over where the darker value is so that there's an overlap. Then you start at the darkest area, and you wrap a little piece of tissue paper around your finger and you blend out so you get that very subtle gradient going from darkest value to lightest value. And that's you follow the contour of the cheek, you follow the contour of the nose, you follow the contour of the chin. Take your finger and touch your face as you're shading and see what direction that wrapped up finger with tissue paper and it needs to go in order to make your picture look more three-dimensional and sculptural. That's what you're going for. That's why we're using a sculpture in order to learn how to shade, so we can make our artwork look three-dimensional. I want to point out that this isn't the only method. Here is a stippling method, a pointillistic method where you just use little dots of ink, and wherever you want the darkest shadows to be, you just make the ink denser. You just use a lot more dots in the areas of the darkest shadows, and a medium number of dots for the midtones, and much fewer dots where the highlights are. So let's review. You start out with a geometric form. You add the eyes, nose, and mouth along your guidelines. You sculpt the contour of the head. You add the hair, erase the guidelines. Now you've got a contour drawing, and now you start adding shadows. You follow the three-dimensional form. Here's a drawing I made using the app on my iPhone, Animation Creator. I was able to change the width of the brush strokes as well as the opacity, the lighter color. Because when I took down the opacity, it creates a light sort of misty color. You can change the width of the brush stroke to make a very fine, precise pencil line, all the way up to a very misty sort of light shading. So I played around with that. I was not actually looking at Michelangelo's David when I made this animation. I was more trying to follow the three-dimensional sculpted contours of the human face. So, which is the point here. You're basically looking at great art, learning from great art, and then using it as a jumping off point to create your own original work.